You are currently the only person in this conference.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're good. But yeah, how are you?
I've been good. How about you?
Good, good. Just trying to get through the heat, like we said the other
Oh
day.
yeah,
It was 100 degrees here in Dartmouth today,
yeah.
so
It's the same here as well. It's really hot and humid as well. So it's not a very good weather to be outside.
no, no,
It's
definitely
just
not.
it's
Is
just
uh is Ontario? You're in Ontario, right? Yeah, that must be so cold in the winter.
oh yeah, that is. But now it's seemingly have shifted. I don't know. So usually it would be like under 10 degrees in Celsius around like December or maybe touching zero. Most of the extreme winter usually happens in February when we expect to have few uh, storms or anything. So yeah,
Yeah,
usually now the winter, I would say the real winter where you have to like pack up and do everything would be in
yeah.
January and February most of the time. So yeah,
It's interesting. It's the same thing here in Mass.
yeah,
It's like it's a lag. There's a lag. The
everything
solstice
has
is December
changed.
21st. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything has changed. Yeah. I remember my mom saying, Thanksgiving it would often be snowing, and I'm like,
Yeah,
"What?"
like
That's
this year we had a white Christmas, but I think before that, like since 2021, I haven't seen a white Christmas. It never snowed on Christmas here. 2020, I remember a friend of mine was here. She said that it was like complete whiteout. And this last year we had snow on the this Christmas time. So
Oh, that's
things are
awesome.
changing.
Okay, hopefully for the better.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right. Well, yeah,
So,
I'm ready.
you are okay with the case you have selected, right?
Yes. Yeah, I just looked at it was intermediate.
Hmm.
I'm not.
It has,
I'm
so
not.
I've done that one. It has a lot of calculation just in itself.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Okay, let me get my good pen here.
Okay. Shall we get
Okay.
into the next stage?
Okay.
Okay, let's
All right.
start the
I'm
first
ready.
round. Okay, and then I think this one is, yeah, candidate led, so I think it would be in your zone.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, shall I start?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna start the clock here and then I'm gonna prompt on the case. Okay, so Dubai Airport has decided to counter the chaos in the airport taxi service by commencing a bidding process to assign airport taxi services to three operators only. Okay. After
Okay.
years of cheating passengers, black market drivers, and unlicensed cabs, the airport had had enough of the problems and is now taking action. So what they have done is they are retracting all existing permits and are issuing 2,100 new permits to the three largest operators in the country. Okay, so our client
Okay.
is a big is a local big three taxi operator with a 3,000 car fleet, but he is not servicing the airport yet. He has a spare capacity of 500 taxis and he is considering applying for 500 new permits. But he doesn't know if he will get a positive return on this investment. He had asked us to help him determine if he should pursue applying for the permits or not.
Okay. So a lot of information there,
Yes.
but hopefully I captured most of it. So our client is a taxi operator,
Hmm.
and they're considering. So at Dubai Airport,
Hmm.
there's a lot of chaos in I guess, the taxi industry, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of black market. There's a lot of um, you know, services that are not really paying the fees that they should be, or unlicensed
Right.
cab operators. And so the airport is starting. a clean slate pretty much.
Yes.
And they're giving out 2,100 permits
Right.
to three of the largest taxi operators in the country.
Right.
Am I right so far?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And then, so our client is one of those big three,
Correct.
and they already have our fleet, but not at the Dubai airport.
Correct.
And they have a spare capacity of 500
Hmm.
new taxis, and they're trying to decide whether they'll get a positive investment if they expand to the Dubai airport. And they
Hmm.
want us to help them see if
Right.
it's viable that they get the licenses
Yeah.
for the taxis. Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Like, yeah, sort of the medallion thing. So they're looking if they take that uh, permit for airport, would it make sense?
Okay, awesome. So they
Yes.
already have the taxis. They just
They
want to
have
know if they should get the
3,000,
license.
yeah. So they have a fleet of 3,000 taxis, of which they can spare a capacity of 500 taxis, and they are evaluating if it would make sense to put in these 500 taxis into the airport service.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so couple clarifying questions.
Sure.
He wants to understand if it's worth it to pursue this, opportunity.
Correct.
Is our company, is he or she or they, are they looking for a specific metric, a specific target like return
Right.
with with
Mhm.
this?
So they are looking at an investment target of 20% of ROI in the first year.
That's awesome. Okay. 20%
Mhm.
ROI in the first year. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Um, okay. Anything else that I have? Okay, and then I guess secondly, they have capacity for 500
Right.
new taxis to be allocated to Dubai. Can we assume that they can allocate just all of these to Dubai and that there isn't, other opportunities that they might be pursuing at the same time?
Yes, like that's what we are trying to check if it makes
Okay.
sense for investing, like dedicating the 5 taxis for the for the airport service.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. All right. Would you mind just giving me, a minute to just structure my thoughts here?
Sure.
Okay. I think I'm just about ready.
Good.
All right. So to figure out, whether we should invest in the new permits for the 500 taxis,
Hmm.
I'd want to look at three things. I'd separate into three main buckets. The first would be just actually figuring out if the demand is there, if there's capacity, if this is a feasible, you know,
Right.
expansion to do with regards to market demand. The second thing I'd want to look at is, if that is the case, I want to look at the unit economics and try to plan out if this is financially feasible, maybe
Hmm.
do some profitability analysis there to determine if we can actually hit that 20% ROI.
Right.
And then the last thing would just to be looking at the risks. Um, you know, I'm not sure the other competitors that we're looking at, if those 2,100 permits are all dealt out. I don't know what the competition would be like there, but it's worth considering.
Hmm.
Um, Also, uh, I'd be curious to see if there's other, like, I know that we have, for example, Uber and Lyft, and I'm not sure what year this is, but substitutions are also there alongside
Right.
competition. So I'd want to look at sort of the trends there, and the consumer behavior there, just to see if there are some risks with other technologies that could subvert our operations in the future.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so I think first, before looking at like financials, do you have any data on like the market or consumer demand that might be helpful?
So we do have some data onto it, which uh,
Awesome.
which we can talk about. So, right now, the Dubai airport, they have 84 million passengers per year.
That's awesome. Okay.
And we are looking at on an average 20% of these uh, they go into Dubai. Others would be the transit passengers, so might be taking a flight outside to somewhere else. So 20% are the people of 84 million passengers which go into Dubai, which are using taxi. Remaining 80% are the transit passengers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the airport has 84 million passengers per year flying, into the airport. And then 20% of this 84 million figure would be our target market, the
Yes.
people that use taxis.
Right.
Okay,
So
awesome.
next on to it is that they have two time schedules. So from 12 a.m. in the midnight to 6 a.m. is one shift, and the second one is
Okay,
6 a.m. in the morning to 12 a.m. again midnight. Okay.
okay,
So in each of these, so between 12 a.m. that is midnight and 6 a.m., 50% of the passengers they require taxi.
okay,
Right? And you can assume that there could be a possibility of multiple passengers sharing a taxi as well. So in total,
okay,
that comes to 50% of the people within this time
okay,
frame would be taking taxi. And similarly, from between 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., the other 50% requires a taxi, and the same assumption that there could be multiple passengers sharing a taxi. Okay.
okay. That's
And
that's that's great information.
yeah,
Right off the bat, I can already tell that, the 6 a.m. to midnight, so during the day, that's 3 times as long as the midnight to 6 a.m., and it's still 50%. So already
yeah,
there's some unevenness there that's
yeah.
interesting to look at.
And we have some information on the fare. So the night fare is $80, while the day fare is $70.
Great to know.
Okay, and we can assume the taxis are operating 24/7. Say, and we can assume there is no need for fuel, maintenance, or traffic jams. And every trip,
Operating continuously.
yes, operating
Okay,
24/7. And
cool.
every trip takes 60 minutes to leave the airport and get back.
60 minutes. Okay, nice and clean. Okay, okay. Okay, so yeah, this is great information. I think from here, I would yeah, I would look at the demand forecast. I believe that this is enough information for me to make a crude demand forecast. I will need to do a bit of math, but right off the bat, I see that the midnight to 6 a.m.
Mhm.
Is a far more profit gaining time of day and shift because they're charging $10 more, $80 an hour versus 70, and 50% of the demand is concentrated in that 6 hours as opposed to the other 18. So there might be some capacity concerns there, but we can look at that later. So, would you mind if I just get like 20 seconds to just
Sure.
run through the maths and sort of make sure I got this down?
Maybe before getting into that, how are you approaching this? Like I've given you data which relates to one aspect. So this I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand what exactly is your structure. So we did talk about the demand. So I've given you the information now. Uh, what is the next step you're trying to do?
Yeah. So right off the bat, we have the 84 million passengers. We have the 20% using the taxi. So
Hmm.
theoretically, I could from that determine how many are using the taxi.
Okay.
Um, but there's some mismatch here because the midnight shift is so much more effective. There's so much more capacity there.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I sort of want to structure my thoughts. That's why I wanted kind of 30 seconds, but to sort of see
Take
if I
your
could,
sure.
come up with a way to kind of make sense of that. Okay, I think I'm ready to
Okay.
talk a little more. So yeah, so 84 million passengers are visiting the airport every year. Of those, 50% require a taxi.
Yeah.
And of that, 20% are actually, or 50% require ride fare, and of that, 20% are going to take a taxi. So that would be 8.4 million passengers per year that would be taking a taxi and are our target market. Um, from here, I would like to know 8.4 million passengers per year. You know, because we're trying to hit a target ROI, and
Yeah.
I'm still looking at that. Midnight to 6 a.m. I'm wondering, is there any capacity like limits? Is there anything you can tell me about like um,
I think that is there in the data about the capacity.
okay,
If you just quickly relook at it, what information I shared, that would give you some perspective about, and you are right, they're going to be a capacity constraint. Um, so how would you
21.
approach about calculating the capacity?
Well, the airport's giving 2,100 new permits.
Right.
So
But are we
uh,
concerned about 2100?
no, we are not. We only have 500
Right.
taxis that we need to worry about.
Correct.
So we should be okay there.
And
Um,
we did have some information on how the taxis operate and their trip time, right?
yeah, yep,
So,
60-minute trip time, 24/7 runtime,
mhm.
and the ride fare. Yeah. Yeah, so from here, this demand, it does seem steady. I will assume that
Okay,
we
let me put
can.
it this way. What are you gonna achieve from demand? What is the target point? Like, what information do you have?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, we're trying to figure out the revenues here, how much we're gonna
Correct.
actually make. I'm not sure we will have enough capacity or like, reach 100% capacity
Hmm.
for all of the hours that our taxis are in service.
Right.
But, I think just to simplify, if it's okay with you, I'll just assume 100% capacity. Everything is being used, every taxi is being used every hour of the day,
But
and we
how
can
do
see.
you don't you think you need to get into a bit of a nitty-gritty to see a number of trips which are happening on a day, right? We have 24 hours in a day. If we are saying each taxi is running 24/7 and they are doing
Yeah,
60 minutes trip, wouldn't
yeah.
that mean that every taxi is doing 24 trips in a day,
Yes, absolutely.
right?
If we're at capacity,
No,
if we're
so
reaching
the
capacity.
two parts to it. This is your supply, right? So number of trips you can do is 500 taxis into 24 trips if there is demand, right? That's the supply side. On the
Yes.
demand side, you have 80, you got to number of 84 or 8.4 million passengers
Yeah,
taking taxis,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So of so now we have uh this is 524 is your daily number of rides. So you need to get back, reverse calculate to your number of demand on a daily basis. That's where you will be able to compare. You have a supply of 500 into
absolutely,
24
yes,
taxis,
yes,
and
absolutely,
you
that
have
makes
a
sense now.
demand of these. So that way you will understand, and then we will have to split it up into your daytime and the nighttime timelines which we have given, and that's where you will be able
Absolutely,
to
yeah,
identify where the constraint of capacity is.
yep. So, yeah, just to reiterate, that you pulled out what I was sort of kind of thinking this whole time, but
Yeah.
the supply side is different from the demand side, and right now I'm focusing on the demand. I wanna allocate the demand for the daytime shift versus the nighttime shift,
Yeah.
and that's how I wanna start, just to see what the demand looks
Sure.
like, capacity, sort of there. So, I mean, I think I could do this right here in front of you. So
Sure.
we have 8.4 million passengers per year,
Right.
and can I assume that there's 365 days in the year for this particular
Yes.
year?
Yeah.
So I would just divide the 8.4 million, 65. I'm just dividing 365 into 8.4 million. Let's see. 1,095. Okay. We're at about 23. 2,313 and some change in terms of passengers per day. So about, sorry, 23,013 and some change passengers per day.
Okay.
From there, I would want to separate the night and the daytime hours. And so let's do that out. Start with nighttime. 2003. Is it okay if I round to 23,013 and leave out the decimal?
Yeah, that's okay.
Awesome. During the night is 6 hours. So that is minus 3 is 8. 5.36 is 5. So there's 3,835 and a half passengers per hour
Right.
For the nighttime shift.
Correct.
That would be the demand that we have in terms of every hour for the nighttime shift.
And
For
what's
the
the supply
daytime
we
shift,
have? Do you have that number right now? The supply?
yeah, the supply would be the 2,100 that the airport is
Right.
supplying.
So you
Yeah.
are at 100% capacity here, right? You are efficiently doing
Yes. Yes, we're over capacity at this point. So
Yes.
this is a good sign that we're 100% capacity, over 100% capacity.
Right.
So demand is looking good for the nighttime shift. And then for the daytime shift, let's do this again with 18. Okay, so that would be 1,278.5 passengers per hour for the daytime shift. In other words, a third of the nighttime shift.
Yeah.
And so this would actually be quite a bit below the capacity that we have. So for the daytime shift, all those 18 hours, consumer demand is lower than capacity, and so we may have excess supply there. Could definitely eat into the profitability. Would you?
Now,
I think from
sorry, please go ahead.
I think from here. I'm not sure what the terminology is, to be honest, but the closest thing I can think is like a utilization rate.
Correct. We have
would it be okay if I
1% utilization for
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
assume
about 60.
right now. So you did highlight a good point there. Let's assume, for simplicity's sake, there is 100% utilization for both the periods.
Okay. Okay, cool. So if there's 100% utilization, we can just go ahead and calculate our revenues. We had $70 for the daytime shifts, $80 for the nighttime shifts.
Right.
And so we can calculate the revenue as per day, 18 hours for the daytime times 70 per hour, 1,260, and then 6 hours times the $80 per hour, 480.
Right.
Is 1740. So 1740 per day per taxi in revenue. Now to find all the taxis, we multiply that by 500 taxis, 870,000 taxis. I mean, $870,000 per day.
Yeah.
And then multiply that by the 365 days a year to get annual revenue. Okay, so that would be 317,555,000, give or take, in terms of annual revenue. So this is awesome. Yeah, this is great. I don't believe we got any cost data yet. correct me if I'm mistaken, but it would be great if you had any cost data to sort of see what our
Sure.
profitability would be here.
So, on the cost side, how it works is driver takes 50% of the revenue. And so instead of a salary, they are on a commission basis, like 50% of whatever the
Okay.
revenue for the fare is, they're gonna take that. Operating cost for the cab per cab per year is $5,000. And there is a licensing cost, which is a one-time fee and needs to be paid in advance. That is 250,000 per cab.
Per cab, you said?
Yes, that's a one-time fee.
Wow. One-time
License.
fee of 250,000 per cab. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so that is, we have 50% of revenue is given to the taxi drivers as payroll
Correct.
in the form of commission. Operating costs, we have that was $5,000 per cab.
Per year.
And then for licensing costs, that would be a one-time fee, I'm guessing upfront of
Yes.
$250,000.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And both the
So
numbers were per cab. So 250,000 per cab, as well as the operating cost of $5,000 per cab per year.
Okay, and I'll assume, can I assume, if it's okay, that the operating costs cover, utilities,
Everything.
gas?
Yeah.
Okay, everything. Awesome. Okay, so from here, I would just take these unit costs really and apply them to entire cost base that we have. So
Sure.
for the 50% payroll, we had 317.55 million.
Mhm.
So 50% of that would be, let's see, 158 point, point 775, 158.775 million.
Okay.
Would it be okay if I rounded that to
Yeah.
155? Yeah, 158.8, if that's okay. So that is payroll. For operating costs, we have 5,000 per cab times 500 cabs. That's just going to be an easy 2.5 million
Right.
right there. And then the licensing costs, one-time upfront fee of $250,000 times 500 is $125 million.
Mhm.
Okay. So if we add all these up,
Yep.
we get total costs of 286.3 million as our total costs.
Okay.
Now, so this would be unique because we do have an upfront licensing cost.
Yeah.
So I will, how about I do the first year, the net profit for the first year, and then the following years. That's okay. Okay,
We
awesome.
are actually concerned with the first year because we are looking at a
First,
1 year period with a 20% ROI.
awesome. So that'll be 317.55 million minus the 286.3 million, which would be 5, 2, 1, 2, 3. That'll be 31.25 million in profit the first year would be our net profit.
Okay.
And so, yeah, this is a great number. Obviously, it's positive, but as we looked at before, we have, above 100%, well below, below 100% utilization rate during the daytime hours for taxis. And that does take up 18 hours of the day. Were we to assume that this underutilization applied to, our cabs, this number may not be as attractive. But just looking at this at face value,
Yeah. Let's do
1.2,
that with 100% utilization as we were doing the calculations. Let's assume there.
so 31.25 million in profit. That would be profit, and then the investment to find the ROI. The investment would be let me look here. Which investment would be I mean, assuming that there's no other costs put into this, the investment would just be the licensing costs.
Okay. Yeah.
In which case, that would be the investment, and the return would be 31.25 million.
Mhm.
So that's divided by 4. That's 25% right there.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Great.
in return on investment, which is higher than the 20% target rate.
Mhm.
Um, and also that's just considering the first year, because in following years there's no licensing fees. So
So,
I
yeah.
mean, I can do that math out right here, but the ROI would be far greater
Great. Right.
in successive years.
Okay.
So,
Great.
given this information, I would want to look still more into the demand side and see if we can, maybe there's some history of how we do relative to underutilized airports. Just any information I can get my hands on there. But looking at this data alone, this looks like a reasonably attractive opportunity. We have a 25% ROI first year, which is over the 20% target.
Mhm.
And in successive years, I mean, we have well over, I mean, well, like 6 times that in terms of ROI in successive years if we don't have to pay this 125 million.
Right.
So, yeah, I would say this is a good opportunity to go for.
Great. So maybe you can just give a conclusion onto what would be a key output. I think you have covered it. Maybe just reiterate there. So I think that would be the conclusion there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could say it again if you want.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
This is
So,
fine.
yeah. So this was it was a good case. We looked at for this taxi operator of one of the big three local taxi companies. They had 500 new or 500 extra capacity of taxis that they could use for this Dubai airport, which is licensing 2,100 new taxis to be put in service. And we wanted to figure out, whether this was an attractive opportunity. The person we're working with wants a 20% ROI, and so we looked at demand forecasts to see sort of what the utilization would be of our taxis and how the demand is allocated throughout the days, because demand is different throughout the hours of the day. And we did find that during the nighttime there's 3 times greater demand during the daytime hours. So during the daytime hours we are lower would be we would be demand cons- yeah, we would be demand constrained during the daytime hours.
Yeah.
So there would be underutilization there. However, holding that as equal, ceteris paribus, we calculated the revenue. We found that it was 317.55 million. We put in the costs
Yeah.
as 286.3 million, and subtracting those two, we found out that our profit in our first year would be 31.25 million, which is 25% of our initial investment.
Mhm.
And so that exceeded our ROI target. And then on top of that, in successive years, we wouldn't have to pay the upfront licensing fee, which is quite steep, 125 million. And so our ROI would go steeply up after that. And so, with the given information, yes, I would want to look more into the consumer demand and the allocation of demand throughout those hours to see if we could make sense of it. But given this data, I would say that it is an attractive opportunity, and that's what I would recommend to whoever it is we're talking with here.
Great. Yeah. So I think that's conclude the case here.
Ooh,
So,
okay.
so how
Thank
did
you,
you feel about the
Manish.
case?
Oh, this was harder than the last one.
Yeah.
This was harder than last. It was good. It was good. There was a lot of math.
Yes.
I thank you for in the beginning telling me to split up demand and supply. I was thinking about that and I couldn't like vocalize it.
No, but that's a
So
good thing because the last person I had this case with, he couldn't get into that part, and he was too much. circling on the numbers part there, and that's what I realized you did very good about how you went about the revenue calculation, doing the weighted average of overall. Once you had that idea that 24 number of trips gonna happen and we have the fixed time and we are assuming 100% utilization, so it doesn't make sense to separate it out. Better just get a weighted rate and then multiply by the number of the caps. But I think you was circling a bit. That's where I had to step in. But you were right to identify there is a demand constraint. But at the same
Yeah.
time, the only thing I realized was your structuring was fine. The time you took was fine this time, and I realized that from our past discussion, you were prompt to ask about if we have any specific number or numerical objective, right? So
Yep.
that
I
that
remember
was
that.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think on the structure side of it, there was one issue. You talked about the demand, right? It would have been a simpler structure because we are looking at ROI, right? ROI, as we said, it's profit upon the amount investment amount, right? So we are looking at the profit, which would again be profit, the revenues and the cost, right? And the revenue itself would have part to it as the sales, which would include your demand, right? Because you talked
Mhm.
about that you want to
Yeah.
understand the demand, but that would have come, like the structure was fine, but what happened was because of your structure and you are trying to stay within the structure, so you are focusing too much on the demand
I
at the
was.
initial
Yeah.
stage,
You're right.
right?
Yeah.
Because I
I was
gave you
trying
a
to
lot
not
of
think about that.
yes. Because if you had structured it with revenue and cost, you would have realized that the eventual object, that's why I asked you, what's the objective? What do we want to do from the demand, right? Eventually, we want to see. So one part was good about understanding there is a constraint. So we may not look at 100% utilization would be a oversimplification. But at the
Yeah.
same time, the 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 end objective is get to the profit which would come from the revenue, right? So
Yeah.
once you were out of that loop and you got like I think it was once it was out of your system that you're saying yes, this is something I was looking for the demand, and I can see my hypothesis was correct that there would be a constraint on the daytime. Then you were very quick about getting onto the revenue side, the number calculation. So then the calculation was superb. And yeah, just one small part again, um, just reiterate the formula. As in, like, if you're talking about revenue, what does the revenue says, right? Just like though obviously both of us know
Oh,
how the revenue is calculated, but just to keep the individual engaged, you can talk about that, right? Just the
okay.
formulas.
Yeah.
Like for the ROI, you just say it's profit upon investment. You got onto the calculation part. If you could have just given that small statement, it would have like because I was seeing through, because the numbers were different. So that's where I was looking at 236 or something, then 31, right? But it's just that if you could have spoken it, it would have like been icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the case was like your performance is really great. Uh, Only part to think about it what the key objective is, because it's you had the right idea but you were stuck on it for a long time. If I hadn't stepped in, it may have happened that you were stuck and we may have ended like spent the complete time was have exhausted.
Yep. Yep. No, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the consumer demand, it got me because I was just what made me think about it was every time I go to an airport, there's always extra
Flags.
taxis for some
Yes.
reason, and they're just not be nobody's taking them, and so I was like we can put these taxis there, but they're not gonna be like some of them won't be used, and so
True.
um, I was just struggling to verbalize that.
Yeah,
So
I think you
thank
were got into that loop. But yeah, keep the like that's what I'm saying. When the structure would have been like you got stuck on the demand side of it because you separated it out from the profitability analysis. Your second step was the profitability, which you talked about. The third one was about other alternatives, right? But
yeah,
ideally, the demand was part of the profit cycle itself. So it just that I think it was just a timing part. But once you get onto more with the structuring, you would have seen it that like once that was out of your system that you have identified, you were through with the revenue side. So It's just that it would take a bit more
Yeah.
practice, but otherwise, the communication in terms of how the numbers, the calculation, everything was perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very valuable feedback. Yeah, I think if I were to do it again, I would have done the revenue, the profitability first, and then factored in utilization rates because
Right.
like that's it's fair to initially assume that and then go back later and
Yeah,
ask about
because
the
it's
utilization.
coming from because we are looking at an ROI of more than 20%, right? So if you do a top-down approach, you need to have something of an ROI which is more than 20%. To get that, you need the investment and you need the profit. And profit for that you need data for revenue and the cost, right? When you're done with the revenue part, you realize, oh, you don't have data for the cost. And that's where you prompted, oh, okay, can
Yep.
we have any data, right?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it would have been simpler if you had that structure, like that top-down structure. That would you would realize, oh, I have a check, I check for the demand. Now I am through with the revenue. Now I have to look at the cost. So, but we don't have that. But that's about it. But
Yeah.
it was fine. I like everything went really well from like how I see it. You like with a bit of a nudge, you were able to be in that loop and then run about through the entire case. But once you were at the revenue, you just hit it out of the code.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm glad. I was pretty nervous. I was like, I hope I'm not
No,
spewing
because that's what I
just
said you to
nonsense.
you in the initial stage that this has a bit of a calculative one. And the last person I did this case
You
with,
you were
he
right.
got stuck. He got stuck there. So
Oh
I
my
just
god.
wanted to give a heads up. Um, Before we start
Yeah,
off,
no,
do
I have
do
a
you want to
long
take
division.
a break or something? Do you need to use the
Yeah, yeah,
washroom?
sure. Yeah,
Okay, let me just pause
yeah,
the
that'd be great.
recording and then I'll see you back in a minute.
Well, let me know when you're ready and
Okay,
switch hats here.
let's go to the next stage.
All right, let's do it. Okay. For this next case, it is a interviewer-led case.
Right.
And yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
Sure. Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Our client is a consumer packaged goods company looking for top-line growth opportunities. They are considering extending its pre-existing baby products brand, for example, Huggies, into a new product category, baby clothing. They're looking for this business to generate over 300 million per year, beginning in year one. Should our client enter the baby clothing market?
Okay. Thank you for the information.
Yeah.
I'll just reiterate to see that I have covered everything, though it was a quite concise information there. So our client is a CPG company which which wants to get into a new product now. For instance, they are Huggies and they want to get into a new product category of baby clothing, and they have an objective to achieve 300 millions of revenue in the first year uh, after this market entry. And they are looking to understand from us if it makes sense to enter into the baby clothing market.
That's
Right?
correct.
Okay. Do we have any other objective besides the revenue for the case in terms of profitability or just the revenue would be the guiding factor for getting into this market or this product category?
Yeah. So for now, just the revenue would be our
Okay.
KPI that we're looking.
Okay.
And I do have a question whenever you're ready. The first question,
Sure.
which is, how would you help the client decide whether they should enter the baby clothing market?
Can I just take 2 minutes to structure my thoughts on that?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Uh, I'm ready there. So, since we are looking at understanding if our client should enter into this new product category, I would divide it into four buckets, which I want to analyze before we can go about making that decision. So, first one, so I would divide it into the market. need to understand how our market is, what our consumers are, then the company, the competition, and the profitability for this product category and alternative investment opportunities. So if I go into the market, so I want to understand like what is the market size of the baby clothing market right now, right? How it has changed, how it has changed over the years, what are the kind of margins we can expect. um, then that would also include to understand about the consumer behavior, what is their price elasticity, how brand loyal they have been, right, for the existing products. Um, so that would be something to understand what our target consumers and what the market looks like. Secondly, it would be ourselves, like to understand can we actually achieve this? So just to understand what our capabilities are, and can we use any of it, can we use the existing infrastructure to get into this product development, or do we need to identify new suppliers, right? And second part, will the consumer associate our brand? Do we get any help from our, for instance, Huggies is our current brand. Would that brand association will entice people to use baby clothing from our brand and move from a different brand, right? So that would be a part to understand about our company capabilities. Thirdly, to look at the competition, how they would react with our market entry. And in that, we need to understand how many competitors do we have, what is their scale right now, how their sales have been in the last years, what is their market percentage, like how much is the market share they control right now. All those factors will need to be evaluated. Like if there could be a price war coming in, if we come in, so they reduce their price, they already have a market share. So would it make sense? So all that market dynamics in respect to a competition. Lastly, looking at the unit metrics on this, like is it a profitable investment to do? And if there are any constraints with regards to external factors like government regulations, some taxes, or some specific materials which could there could be a sensitivity in terms of what kind of cost we can manage. And at the same part, I would want to see that if we do not enter this market, are there any other avenues which could bring us that 300 million of revenue in a year? So that's how I would want to structure and look at it. And based on that, we can make a decision, or if it makes sense to get into this product right now.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. Any questions that you might have for data or
Right.
anything in
So
particular?
that's where I would want to understand, as to start with the market side, like what is the market size of the baby clothing market? Does it have enough meat that we can share it from the competition, get it from the customer, consumer, competition right now? That would be something. And
Yeah.
if we have any product categories or pricing details, what kind of pricing it goes, what kind of sales volume we have, that would give me an understanding about how it would run.
Yeah. So yeah, I do have some information for you. You asked about the market.
Yeah.
Baby clothes market is about 4 billion in the United
Wow.
States.
4
And just
billion.
to
Okay.
add to this, the client has conducted extensive consumer research,
Okay.
and consumers would be very willing to purchase baby clothes made by them.
Yes.
And then finally,
Yeah.
their baby care products are sold through grocery stores, drugstores, and mass merchants like Target and Walmart. And they
Okay.
would want to remain a wholesaler,
So
so
sorry, can
selling
you just
products to
repeat?
these
So
retailers.
it would be, oh, so we
Yeah.
are mostly a wholesaler right now. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Wholesale will be our approach. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Selling products to these retailers to then sell to customers. And we
Right.
want to be this in the baby clothes market as well.
Okay. Great.
So yeah. So I have the next question for you,
Sure.
which is one driver of revenue is pricing.
Hmm.
Does our client have estimates on price points that they can charge for their baby clothes?
Okay.
And I do have an exhibit for you. Here it is. Let me know if you can see this. One second.
Yes, I can see now.
Awesome.
Great. So we are looking at baby clothing prices for tops, bottoms, sleepwear, one piece, dress, and these are the retail prices. So these would be the pricing which our customers are selling it further to, right? But do we
That's
have any information on these volumes or like just to get an average pricing of what a retail item would be selling at?
yeah. So
Like I can do a weighted average if we have for each of the categories the volume available.
yeah, absolutely. So there is let's see how this is working. So I'm not supposed to tell you that, but there is a $10 weighted average
Okay.
price point per item based on variation in sale frequency, but that would be the weighted average price for
And
these pieces of
this is the retail price, right? The $10.
correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So we have a 40% margin. So I'm assuming on that with a 40% margin, our price or the weighted average our price would be $6 on a unit item.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So based on that, we are looking at our objective is to so we are looking at a revenue objective of $300 million. So in order to achieve, so revenue is component of sales into price. So we have a price of $6 which we will be selling. So we need to have a sales of 50 million units to achieve that 300 million revenue target for the first year.
Absolutely. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and just so I can know, because I'm not sure I got it, but how did you arrive upon the 300 million metric
Uh,
for
because
the
that
total
was the
sales?
objective which you shared that the company wants to see a 300 million revenue in the first year for
Oh,
the
yeah.
product
Yeah.
entity.
Yes. Awesome. My bad.
No
Perfect.
worries.
So yeah, perfect. So yeah, that moves us to the next question. You were correct there. How many
Okay.
units would our client need to sell to reach this revenue target?
That's
And
the
is
50
this a
million,
feasible
yes.
goal? Yeah. And then I do have another exhibit for you. So I just shared with you a graph, and
Mhm.
let me know if you
Yeah,
could what you take from this graph and how it
sure.
informs your answer.
Okay, I'll just take a minute just to jot down my thoughts on what I'm seeing here. But this on the competition landscape, we are looking at the volume in millions, and we have a bifurcation between wholesaler and retailer. So if I talk about
Correct.
competition here, what we see is uh, if I divide my observations on retail and wholesale here, and wholesale being our preference, looking at private labels as is predominantly contributing or their mode of sales is direct retail. So that's one of the key parts. And
Yep.
we are seeing here the the bigger chunk of the wholesale, if we talk about the others category of the total 382, we are seeing 245 is coming from the beyond the top six brands here. So it looks like
Yep.
the overall market is quite fragmented here.
That's correct.
Uh, and if I look at the top contributors, the overall sales for brand A being at 45, 22 for brand B, which is completely again retail, 38, 32, 35, and 16. So from this, one key part we can observe is the the biggest brand right now, the top brand, is selling 45 million units. Uh, and
Yeah,
obviously
that's
there is
correct.
a bifurcation here, but then that actually brings us to a situation because we are targeting to achieve 50 million to achieve our revenue targets, which might be difficult just through because the brand A, and like any of the brands just directly through the wholesale channel has not exceeded actually 38 million on the top side. And even the
Yes.
biggest brand, it has a 28-17 ratio of how they are selling their products right now. So we considering just wholesale as one of the only ways to go about achieving that 50 million might be difficult. So maybe, and since the market is fragmented, we can still expect to have a brand, but then since the top brands are not achieving that through wholesale, so we need to keep our options open to explore direct to retail as well. Because right now we're seeing that we are selling at wholesale with $6, but at the same time, if we do a retail wise, because it's a higher price, so that ways we can achieve the same revenue number through a lower number of volume sales. So for instance, uh, if we go retail way all through, we need to sell only 30 million units against 50 million if we are doing it on wholesale side. So that would
Yeah,
be one of the observation or one of the consideration the company should look at to not stick just with the option of wholesale, because we have a price constraint, as well as we are seeing the overall market is in a way not extending very like a lot of traction or sales through the wholesale part. So that would be one of the key observation that we need to keep ourselves open to retail sales as well.
that's a great observation and great for seeing that. Just interested, would you, with this information, be able to identify what the market share would potentially be overall to achieve their revenue goal with the information given?
Okay. Um, so we are looking at the market share we can achieve. So we have the wholesale of 382, and with 50 million sales, which we expect to achieve our target. So 50 divided by 382, that would give us the the market share we're trying to capture here. Um, and that would translate to, so if I assume it at 400, so then it should be, if I round it up 382 to a 400 number, so we can expect around a bit more than 13% of the market share, which we're looking to target.
That's correct. That's correct. Great. Yeah. So moving on from there,
Okay.
as you mentioned, it's less attractive to just go into the wholesaling of the units. If your client is still interested in entering the baby clothes market one way or another, what other options could they explore?
I'll just take a minute. Yeah.
Take your time.
Um, if the client still intends to continue entering this product category, um, I think the first one and foremost would be, since we are not looking at just wholesale, we should be exploring retail opportunities. So in that aspect, we can look at collaboration with this private label brand on the retail side as well, or look at brand B where they have significant presence even in the retail space. So that would be some sort of a collaboration opportunities where we can look at getting a pie of the retail share. Secondly, would be I think there could be an opportunity to acquire, because we have a fragmented wholesale market. We are seeing others category are selling 245 million units there. So we can also look to acquire a couple of companies so that we can use their uh, to scale ourselves and to acquire that volume capacity from there. So that would be one part. Then the retail, and thirdly about, so these I think would be the three key areas where we can look at getting into the market, and at the same time ensuring that we are able to cover up for constraint of just selling through the to the wholesale space.
Awesome. So yeah, just wrapping up now. If the client, asks you for your initial recommendation, what would you say?
Okay. I'll just take a minute just to structure my conclusion here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this case talks about a client wanting to get into the baby clothing the category here, and considering it's a big market with 4 billion of total market size here, I think based on what data which we saw there, um, Oh, sorry. So, and the constraint that we have a good control on the wholesale side, and we want to explore that. That would be, we should enter the market, but considering we are only looking at wholesale as our channel of distribution, would be a not very fruitful opportunity considering the overall current the competition landscape which we have looked at. So. Um, for two factors, because firstly the competition, second that the price point where we can sell through a retail space is higher than the wholesale price, so that could bring us more opportunities for revenue as well as profit. So considering just the current constraint, it doesn't make sense to get into the market because we would not be able to achieve our target of 300 million revenue in the first year. But if the client insists about getting into this space, I think the only way ahead would be to firstly exploring a mixed use distribution through both wholesale and retail space to get the benefit of the pricing as we talked about, as well as um, the volumes. Secondly, if they can also explore for acquiring some companies so as to bring about that capacity, and to bring consolidate that the fragmented um wholesale industry, wholesale part of the baby clothing, and to achieve that 50 million, or sorry, 300 million of the revenue cycle.
Awesome. That's great. And that brings us to the end of the case. Awesome
Great.
job, man. What did you think?
Yeah, I think I fumbled a bit on the conclusion side of it, but considering we didn't have much information there, I think like there was a lot of opportunities when I structured it, looking at the overall the company landscape and everything. But since we focused specifically on two portion, one the revenue and the competition, so there was not much to like looking at what the company capacity or company capabilities are in terms of how they can leverage it was limited to the information on how they want to distribute.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the conclusion was not airtight is something I feel. But other than that, it was a good case. I was happy with my structure there. I thought I covered most of the things. If we have
Yeah.
more time and we want to explore further, we could have looked at it. But other than that, it looks like a simpler case, I believe, from the last one.
Yeah. Hey, everything's simpler for you.
It's not that much.
Everything's simple. Oh man. No, you did very well. I mean, yeah, one of the questions was or it wasn't a question, but it was, what did it say here? The language it used. It said exceptional for the exhibit 2, the competitor landscape. with the different color charts. It said
Yeah,
exceptional candidates will identify what market share is needed to achieve the revenue goal.
right.
And so I made sure I put you there because I knew you could do it, and you did it immediately.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
so
didn't
that was
realize that. Yeah, that like I should have prompted it
no,
myself, considering with a 50 million direct one, how much we are looking at, because that's a big percentage of around 13 to 14% is something we are looking at in 1 year. um, that would have been and actually that could have been a bigger highlight that the highest share percentage right now among that was brand C, which was around
yep,
11%. So we are trying to overthrow all the top players. So I think that could have been
yeah,
additional point to talk about, that there would be a lot of backlash from the competition to the market entry. They wouldn't want to lose their market share there. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Because that's the other thing is it was 300 million in their first year, so it's like
yes.
it's not even after
Yeah,
they're
either they need to
established in the
change
market.
that or they need to change their approach about how they want to achieve it.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you did great job just quickly getting things very quickly. Um, the last the last frame, the last question, not the conclusion, right? One before then. I just didn't catch. It might have been on me, but I just didn't catch what the frame was. So maybe I don't know
Uh,
if you forgot, but like leading with the
yes,
frame,
I think
just
yes,
to I didn't
we
even catch
missed.
it.
Yeah, I didn't actually. Now when you say it, I realized that I was just focusing as a Q&A, that if they want to go ahead,
Yeah,
what could be the only option? So yeah, I could have
yeah,
structured it better, uh, and then talk about what could be the couple of areas they can look at, either collaboration, M&A, and then change in their distribution strategy. Could have been there. Yes.
yeah. No, but that's it. That's all I got. Like you did wonderful. It's great to to interview you because I don't know. I see what success looks like.